I finally bought my first house. My parents took me to court for 70% of its value. Can you even imagine this? After years of grinding, paying for my own education, clearing student loan debt by myself, I finally bought my first home. My sanctuary. My parents, the very people who raised me, then sued me for 70% of its value. Yeah, you heard that right. My own parents. The lawsuit landed like a punch to the gut, shattering everything. I stood there, in front of my new condo window, seeing not my reflection, but a ghost of the life I thought I was building. Unopened boxes were everywhere, a lone folding chair, that cheap coffee maker that had traveled with me through 3 different apartments. This was supposed to be the beginning of my adult life, the reward for all that struggle. But all I could hear was every room whispering, "How long will you truly own me?" That fear, that profound sense of instability, dragged me back 13 years. To a rainy afternoon when I was just 16. I was coming home from pet sitting, soaked to the bone in my faded jacket, clutching the precious $30 I'd earned. My secret plan? Hide most of it in a college envelope behind my dresser. But when I walked into the kitchen, there they were. My dad, Robert, and my mom, Patricia, absolutely beaming. They were giving my 8-year-old sister, Lily, a brand new tablet, announcing over speakerphone that she was the future of the Bennett family. Then, my mom just glanced at my dripping clothes and asked if I remembered to buy milk. That was our family dynamic in a nutshell. Lily was the investment, the golden child. I was the infrastructure, the one who just existed to support it all. Lily got everything: piano lessons, summer programs, new clothes, endless, patient encouragement. Me? I got speeches about responsibility. My parents had stable jobs, but money only seemed to materialize when Lily needed something impressive. If I needed textbooks or new school shoes, I was simply told to be realistic. So, at 14, I started cleaning houses for an elderly neighbor. By 16, I was working evenings at a bakery. The owner, bless his heart, taught me how to track expenses, save consistently, and truly understand the difference between a want and a need. My first paycheck was $186 after taxes. I imagined opening my own savings account, feeling that glimmer of freedom. That freedom lasted exactly long enough for my dad to place a calculator on the kitchen table and declare, 30% of every paycheck will go toward household expenses. I reminded him, "Dad, I'm 16. My mom just laughed, a dismissive sound, saying it was never too early to learn that nobody carried you through life. Minutes later, she transferred money for Lily's private piano coach. What choice did I have? I paid because resistance always brought another grating lecture about gratitude. A month later, I finally used part of my paycheck to buy myself a winter coat from a discount rack.
My mom spotted the shopping bag.
"Why are you wasting money?" she snapped. "Lily's recital costume still needs alterations." The next day, I returned that coat. I walked to work in my old, worn one. That small, painful surrender taught me something truly dangerous. Even money I earned didn't feel morally mine. The most damaging part wasn't losing the cash. It was learning to feel guilty whenever I kept anything for myself. I loved Lily, truly, which made the resentment so much harder to process. It wasn't her fault. She hadn't designed this twisted system. She was just raised inside it. Still, I constantly wondered, why did one child have to become smaller so another could shine? By my final year of high school, I was juggling the bakery, weekend shifts at the library, and maintaining grades high enough for scholarships. I kept my savings a total secret. I knew, deep down, my parents would simply rename it a family emergency. When a state university offered me a partial academic scholarship, my parents' disappointment was palpable. My dad warned, "College is expensive." My mom, without a hint of irony, asked, "Who will replace your monthly contribution?" Their disappointment wasn't that I might struggle. It was that my departure would interrupt a financial arrangement built entirely around my obedience. I left for school on a bus, with just 2 suitcases, because they claimed they could not drive me. Lily hugged me tight, whispering, "I want to be brave like you." I clung to those words, especially when bitterness tempted me to blame her. I truly believed distance would free me from my parents. I didn't yet understand that the strongest chains are the ones a family teaches you to carry inside yourself. College wasn't freedom at first. It was just survival in a different, more expensive location. I attended classes during the day, served tables 5 nights a week, and worked as a teaching assistant whenever I could. My desk lamp stayed on until 3 a.m., and I assigned every single dollar a purpose before I even earned it. My scholarship covered most tuition, but not all, so I borrowed carefully, treating every loan as a future emergency. While other students planned vacations, I was calculating whether replacing my worn shoes would delay rent. My parents called rarely, and every single conversation inevitably became a request. Lily needed a new instrument, a summer program required a deposit, or the family car needed repairs. I sent money more often than I should have, because they framed every request as support for your sister. I told myself I was protecting her from the scarcity I knew. In reality, I was teaching my parents that guilt still opened my bank account. The first time I finally refused, my mom, Patricia, snapped, "Lily might lose an opportunity that could change her life, and I hope your cheap little apartment is worth it." My dad, Robert, accused me of forgetting who had raised me. After that call, I blocked both their numbers. And I cried on the floor until sunrise. Not because I believed I was wrong, but because protecting myself still felt like the ultimate betrayal. But that night, something profoundly changed. I started reading. I devoured articles about financial abuse, parentification, families organized around a favored child. I learned that being needed was not the same as being loved. A professor, seeing something in me, recommended me for a paid internship at a financial services company. My supervisor there, Marcus Lee, trusted me with serious work. He praised results instead of demanding sacrifice. That simple, human respect exposed just how little acknowledgement I had ever received at home. I graduated with a finance degree, strong grades, and nearly $40,000 in student loans. No one from my family attended. My mom said the drive was inconvenient, and my dad called ceremonies symbolic. Lily sent a sweet apology and promised to celebrate later. Standing there, among cheering families, I finally, truly stopped waiting for my parents to become different people. A classmate's mother, a complete stranger, found me alone after the ceremony and insisted on taking a photograph with me, so I would have at least one picture from graduation. She asked about my goals, listened intently, and then simply said, "I'm proud of you." I nearly broke down. Her kindness required nothing in return. That was when I finally understood how abnormal, how twisted, my family's version of support had always been. Marcus helped me secure a full-time analyst position. I rented a tiny studio, bought secondhand furniture, and created a meticulous 5-year plan: emergency fund, debt repayment, then a home. Every promotion became a private celebration for myself. A book, a new plant, a good kitchen knife. Yet, my parents watched each achievement online like hawks. When I posted about a promotion, my dad, Robert, would comment, "Now you can help your sister properly." When I paid off a loan, my mom, Patricia, messaged, "Don't get comfortable. Lily's college years are coming." My success was never, ever allowed to belong to me. At 26, I paid off every single student loan. That same week, my parents demanded that I help finance an expensive private university for Lily. I offered scholarships, budgeting advice, more affordable options. My dad told me to take out a personal loan. "Family invests in its brightest future," he declared. I finally asked, my voice shaking, "Why did the family never invest in mine?" His answer was delivered flatly, chillingly. "You are always independent." That single sentence ended something inside me. Independence wasn't a gift they had recognized. It was the name they gave to the abandonment after I had survived it. I refused to borrow for Lily and blocked them again. But this time, Lily contacted me directly, using a friend's phone. She said she had never asked them to pressure me, that their expectations frightened her too. We talked, truly talked, comparing aid packages. She chose a respected state university, one she could afford. For the first time, Our relationship began outside the toxic competition our parents had created. 3 years later, as a senior analyst, I reached the number I had written in my first tiny studio apartment, enough for a 20% down payment, closing costs, and a 6-month emergency reserve. I quietly began looking for a home, believing secrecy would protect this milestone. I totally underestimated how closely my parents were still watching. The condo was modest, 2 bedrooms, an aging kitchen, a narrow balcony, but enough morning light to make the living room feel open and bright. I loved it because it was safe, affordable, and most importantly, mine. On closing day, I signed until my wrist ached. When the agent handed me the keys, I pressed them into my palm and thought about every single shift, every loan payment, every time I had chosen a future goal over temporary comfort. I told Lily first, asking her not to mention it until I was ready. 2 days later, my mom, Patricia, called. She had found the property record online. She demanded to know why I had purchased real estate without discussing it with the family. My dad, Robert, called next, asking how much cash I had used. When I refused to answer, they treated my privacy as evidence that I was hiding money from them. Against my better judgment, I invited them to a small housewarming. I desperately hoped the presence of coworkers, neighbors, and Lily would keep the afternoon civil. Oh, how wrong I was. My mom used the audience as her personal stage. She touched cabinets, criticized the neighborhood, and told one neighbor with a sugary smile, "It is amazing what someone can afford when she does not help her family." During lunch, my dad slid a folder beside my plate. Inside were Lily's tuition statements, housing estimates, and a highlighted home equity loan brochure. He said her aid package had changed and that $22,000 was needed for the next year. "You have collateral now," he said, looking at me expectantly. "This solves the problem." I stared at him. "My home," I told him, my voice dangerously calm, "is not a family credit line." My mom's voice rose, shrill and theatrical. "How can you sit in a new condo while your sister's future collapses?" Lily immediately interjected, saying she could work, reduce her course load, apply for more aid. My mom snapped, "She should not have to suffer, because you chose property over family." My dad then announced that I owed repayment for food, housing, and transportation during childhood. I reminded him, "You took 30% of my wages when I was a minor." My mom accused me of keeping a secret ledger against my own parents. I shot back, I don't need a ledger to remember paying rent at 16 while you purchased private lessons for Lily." Then, my mom said the quiet part out loud, the crushing truth. "Lily was the child with real potential. You were the practical one. We made choices based on that." My coworkers stared at their plates, utterly mortified. Lily looked as though she had finally heard the full, brutal cost of being favored. The humiliation, the clarity of that moment, it snapped something inside me. I opened the front door and told my parents to leave. My dad paused on the threshold, a chilling smirk on his face. "You can help voluntarily," he said, "or we can make you honor your obligation another way." Lily tried to stay, but my mom gripped her arm and ordered her into the car. That evening, Lily called me, screaming. She said I had destroyed her education, chosen a condo over her future, and humiliated our parents in front of strangers. The words sounded rehearsed, artificial. And behind her, I could clearly hear my mom prompting her, my dad saying, "Tell her what this will cost you." I just asked Lily, my voice raw, "Do you truly believe I owe you my home?" She went silent. Then she ended the call. It hurt more than anything my parents had said, because for a moment, they had managed to make my sister speak with their voice. The calls continued the next morning. My mom called 12 times before breakfast. My dad called from his personal phone, his office, and then multiple block numbers. By evening, there were 45 missed calls. They expanded their campaign, posting in the extended family group that I had locked family resources inside a condo. Relatives began messaging me about gratitude and loyalty. When I replied that no family money had been used, my mom deleted my comment. A week later, my dad emailed a demand: pay $22,000 or sign an agreement to refinance the condo. I ignored it. 3 weeks after that, a process server found me in the building lobby. My parents were suing me for a constructive interest equal to 70% of my home's value. Their complaint alleged that family support had created my earning power, that I had promised to finance Lily's education, and that my purchase was unjust enrichment. Attached were selected bank transfers, obviously cropped messages, and a declaration from my dad claiming that part of my down payment came from a family investment account. The claim was utterly false. Worse, he had printed it on his insurance company's letterhead and used his professional title to make the lie appear credible. That night, I walked through the condo, imagining a court ordering its sale. I knew the claim sounded absurd, but fear does not wait for legal analysis. By morning, I had checked my mortgage account repeatedly and slept less than an hour. I contacted Elena Ruiz, a civil attorney recommended through my company. She read the complaint twice. Then, with a calm professionalism I desperately needed, she said, "Your parents have no automatic right to your property or authority to force one adult sibling to finance another. However, because they alleged an oral agreement and family contribution to the down payment, we had to answer with evidence rather than disbelief." Her retainer consumed a painful portion of my emergency savings. That money was meant for job loss, repairs, or illness. Instead, I was spending it to defend my home from the very people who should have celebrated it. Elena requested everything: tax returns, bank records, tuition statements, employment history, and every single message about Lily's education. At work, I reread emails 5 times and made mistakes I normally would have caught. My mom, meanwhile, expanded her campaign on social media, describing an adult child who benefited from family sacrifice and abandoned her younger sister. She avoided my full name, but included enough details for people to identify me. Strangers sent hateful messages, saying I should be ashamed. Elena's advice was simple: silence. Courtrooms reward evidence, not volume. Following that advice was harder than paying her. Every public accusation invited me to defend myself, to shout back. But any emotional response could be cropped and used against me. I wrote answers I never posted, saved screenshots, and watched relatives reward the loudest, most distorted version of the story. Would you stay silent while your own parents publicly rewrote your life, trusting that evidence would eventually speak louder? I had no better option. So I built evidence. My records were irrefutable. They showed that the down payment came from salary deposits and an investment account solely in my name. Tax documents proved my independence from age 18. Tuition statements showed I had financed my education. Old pay records supported that my parents took part of my wages during high school. But most damaging to their fabricated story, my bank statements showed I had transferred more than $18,000 to them over the previous decade for repairs, bills, Lily's textbooks, and music expenses. The transfers in their complaint were genuine, but they were reversed. They had described money I sent them as money they invested in me. My dad's so-called family investment account was primarily funded by my teenage wages and later support payments. Elena also requested metadata for their cropped messages and, crucially, contacted his employer about the company letterhead. Their compliance office responded, stating that my dad had no authority to issue private financial declarations under the company's name and had opened an internal review. The emotional pressure from my parents only increased. My dad left voicemails saying legal costs would disappear if I settled. My mom recruited relatives to call my office. When a woman claiming to be my aunt demanded to speak with my manager about my financial misconduct, Marcus, my boss, called me into his office. I expected embarrassment or reprimand. Instead, he looked at me, serious but kind, and told me that my family's accusations did not define my professional integrity and advised me to document every contact. Being believed, it made me cry harder than any attack. I started therapy through the employee program. The counselor helped me understand that I wasn't only afraid of losing the condo. The lawsuit had activated the oldest, most insidious lesson in my body. Anything I built could be renamed as something I owed. She asked what I would tell a 16-year-old whose parents took her wages and later sued her for refusing to surrender her home. I said I would tell her she had done nothing wrong. Then practice saying it to yourself, she replied. 2 weeks before court, Lily called from her friend's phone. She had moved out temporarily after arguing with my parents, and she still had the original message they had cropped. The full text read, "I will always help where I can." That means scholarships, budgeting, and practical advice, not taking loans in my name. She also revealed that my dad had drafted a statement claiming she chose her university because I guaranteed for years of tuition. He pressured her to sign it. She refused and, incredibly, photographed the unsigned document. Elena submitted the complete message, Lily's powerful affidavit, the draft statement, and proof that the alleged family account contained my money. A metadata expert confirmed that 2 screenshots had been expertly edited. My parents' lawyer suddenly proposed mediation. The offer required me to pay $12,000 and remain silent publicly. For one fleeting moment, I imagined paying just to make the relentless calls stop. Then I remembered that 16-year-old placing 30% of her teenage paycheck in an envelope while my mom Patricia paid for another lesson for Lily. I rejected the offer. Elena warned that court would expose private details and might permanently end any chance of reconciliation. I told her, my voice firm, the relationship has already been placed on the court docket by my parents. Paying them will not restore it. It will only teach them that escalation works. I will not purchase peace from people who created the war. The night before court, I stood in my dark living room and placed the house key in my palm. "This is mine," I said aloud, my voice small but resolute. It was the first argument I needed to win. The hearing attracted unexpected attention. A local reporter, sensing a story, had noticed the unusual public filing, parents seeking a majority interest in an adult daughter's home to fund another child's education. 2 journalists sat in the back of the courtroom. My parents arrived with their attorney and pointedly avoided looking at me. My mom wore a wounded expression, a masterclass in performative victimhood. My dad carried a thick binder and still seemed convinced that sheer confidence could turn fiction into fact. Judge Ella Mercer began by asking for the legal basis of their outrageous claim. Their attorney argued unjust enrichment, promissory estoppel, and an implied family agreement. He claimed my parents had invested in my upbringing with the expectation that I would later help Lily. The judge interrupted, her voice sharp. "Parents are legally required to support minor children. Basic care is not an investment contract." He quickly shifted to the allegation that my down payment contained family funds. Elena presented the bank records first. The account Robert described as a family investment fund was mainly filled by my wages between 16 and 18, followed by later transfers I made as an adult. No money from it entered my mortgage escrow. My down payment came solely from my salary and investments held only in my name. Elena then displayed a timeline of my work, scholarship, loans, repayment, promotions, savings, and purchase. 13 years of relentless labor appeared on one page. For the first time, I saw my life not as sacrifice, but as irrefutable evidence. Next came the messages. Elena submitted the complete conversation, including the sentences my parents had removed. The metadata report showed the screenshots were cropped after Robert had copied them. Their attorney, floundering, called the omission accidental. Judge Mercer's expression hardened. Elena then introduced Lily's affidavit, stating that I never guaranteed tuition and that our parents pressured her to sign a false statement. Lily was sitting in the back row, brave and resolute, beside a counselor from her university. The judge allowed her to testify. She said she did not want my home, did not expect me to pay her tuition, and had chosen a school she could continue attending through aid, work, and a reduced course load. "Sarah gave me knowledge," she said, looking straight at me. "Our parents wanted her to give me debt." My mom, Patricia, whispered Lily's name, a warning hiss. The judge immediately told her not to communicate with the witness. Elena entered the unsigned statement Robert had drafted. It claimed Lily enrolled because of my unconditional promise to pay all remaining expenses. The judge asked Lily whether I made that promise. She said simply, "No." Robert tried to call the document a proposed summary. Judge Mercer replied, her voice cutting through the silence, "A summary describes an event. This document invents one." Robert's declaration, printed on his company letterhead, was examined next. Elena asked why he used company letterhead to verify that family money funded my purchase. He stammered, saying he was establishing his professional qualification. Elena produced the company's response, stating that he lacked authority to use its name and that compliance had opened an investigation. His confidence, that fragile facade, finally disappeared. When I testified, I explained everything: how I had worked since 16, paid part of my wages to my parents, financed my education, repaid $40,000 in loans, and saved for the condo from my salary. The opposing attorney asked whether I had promised to help Lily. I offered scholarships, budgeting, textbooks, and advice, I said. My voice was strong. Help is not the same as surrendering my home. Love is not an unlimited financial guarantee. Judge Mercer asked whether my parents paid my tuition or down payment. I said no. She asked how much I had transferred to them as an adult. Elena supplied the total, $18,460. The judge looked at my parents. You described this defendant as someone who abandoned her family, she said, her voice firm. The records show repeated support from her to you, not the reverse. Their attorney made one final, desperate appeal to fairness between sisters. Judge Mercer answered, courts do not equalize siblings by confiscating one adult's property to fund another. Nor do courts convert parental disappointment into a lien. After a recess, she dismissed every claim with prejudice, ordered the immediate removal of the notice placed against my home, and ruled that the lawsuit lacked a reasonable factual basis. She ordered my parents to reimburse my documented legal fees and allowed Elena to seek additional sanctions for misleading filings. Then she addressed my parents directly, her words resonating through the silent courtroom. Your daughter's earnings are not family property merely because you disapprove of her choices. Raising a minor child does not purchase a future percentage of that child's assets. The court is especially concerned that you used litigation to preserve a family hierarchy and attempted to place one daughter against the other. Counseling may be beneficial, but accountability cannot be ordered into existence. Outside the courtroom, a reporter asked my parents whether adult children owed repayment for being raised. My dad, Robert, walked past without answering. My mom, Patricia, covered her face. I said nothing. But Lily, my brave, beautiful sister, stopped beside the reporters. My sister did not steal my future, she declared, her voice clear and strong. She showed me how to build one. That sentence became the headline the next morning. The consequences moved quickly. My dad's employer placed him on administrative leave for unauthorized use of company letterhead and later removed him from his supervisory position after a compliance review. He kept his job, but lost the authority and status he valued above all else. My mom's coworkers and community contacts saw the article and her public accusations. She was asked to step down from a fundraising committee. Relatives who had attacked me deleted comments and suddenly claimed they had not known the facts. Elena filed for fees, and my parents, facing the possibility of a separate defamation claim, decided to avoid another case. They removed every accusation and published a retraction in the family group, stating that no family money funded my home and that their lawsuit had been dismissed. It was not a sincere apology, but the lie was corrected where they had spread it. Lily moved out permanently and reduced contact with them. She found part-time work and adjusted her course schedule. My parents went to court claiming they were protecting her future. Instead, they lost daily access to both daughters, a substantial amount in legal fees, Robert's professional standing, Patricia's social position, and the carefully curated family image they had protected at our expense. When Elena handed me the court-stamped order releasing my property, I didn't feel the wild satisfaction revenge stories promise. I felt air returned to a room that had been sealed for years. I walked outside with Lily beside me. For the first time, neither of us was standing in the role our parents assigned. We were simply two sisters, carrying the truth together. The condo felt different after the legal notice was removed. Nothing physical had changed, but I stopped hearing danger in every phone vibration. I painted the second bedroom, bought a real sofa, and placed the court order inside a drawer. I did not want my home to become a monument to the battle. I wanted it to represent the life that continued afterward. The fee reimbursement restored most of my emergency savings. Months later, I earned another promotion and began writing online about financial independence, family pressure, and the emotional cost of being treated as the responsible child. I focused on practical knowledge, separating accounts, protecting credit, documenting transfers, recognizing coercive debt, and setting boundaries before a crisis becomes a lawsuit. Thousands of readers responded with their own stories. Some had been pressured to co-sign loans. Others had supported relatives for years and were still called selfish the first time they said no. The community did not celebrate revenge for its own sake. It shared education, knowledge, templates, and warnings so people could protect themselves before manipulation became financial damage. My condo became the background of those conversations, not as a symbol of wealth, but as proof that stability can be built without permission. Lily and I rebuilt our relationship slowly, carefully. She managed her own budget, worked part-time, and graduated one semester later than planned. When she received her diploma, I was in the audience, cheering her on. Our parents were not. She later told me, her eyes shining, "You did not save me by paying. You saved me by refusing to let them turn me into a reason to destroy you." My mom, Patricia, eventually requested a meeting. She blamed the lawsuit on fear and panic. I looked her directly in the eye and told her, panic did not crop messages, draft false statements, or misuse professional letterhead. Choices did that. I explained that any future relationship required therapy, direct accountability, and absolutely no financial requests. She called those conditions cold. I told her they were the warmest conditions I could safely offer. My dad, Robert, never apologized privately. His public retraction remained the closest he came. The loss of his supervisory role angered him more than losing contact with both his daughters, and that painful truth confirmed why distance was necessary. My mom attended several counseling sessions, but her progress was inconsistent. I stopped measuring my own healing by whether they changed and began measuring it by whether their choices still controlled my peace. 1 year after buying the condo, I hosted a small dinner. Lily, Marcus, friends, and neighbors filled the rooms my parents had criticized. No one asked what my home could finance for them. They brought food, stories, and laughter. Standing in the kitchen, I remembered Patricia calling the condo a monument to selfishness. She was profoundly wrong. It was a boundary made visible. Money earned by your own labor is not a debt you owe for being born. Education and knowledge can help a person build independence, but no lesson matters more than understanding where responsibility ends and manipulation begins. Boundaries are not cruelty. They are the price of freedom. And sometimes, they are the only answer people respect after ignoring every softer one.